Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards. Because we are the best. And we're not wizards. No matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for March. Well, it's almost April, but it is still 2019. Joining me today is a man who I'm a big fan of his work, and not because he's necessarily a board game designer, and not necessarily because he's a content creator. He's a person that makes mechanics beautiful. He's a person that makes boxes attractive. He's a person that brings kind of shape, form, colour into the board game space. This man he's not even a company. He's a man who is the company name is the name of the man that is the company. And that man has been responsible for, if I say his name, you're going to say, oh yeah, of course we know him. It's Ian O'Toole. So, hey Ian.
Hey Richard. Thank you for pointing out the very unimaginative name of my company. Which is my name.
I thought I could build it up and at least try and rescue something, but then I thought at the same time we might as well kind of start failing and continue failing on the way down until we just crash into some kind of almighty
success
fireball. Well, success or fireball, either is kind of acceptable and spectacular. Thank you for joining us, because I realise it's horrifically early in the morning and you're realising now that you could have had an extra hour in bed. So
I will have an extra hour after this.
Oh, that's fine then. It's alright, well at the end I can sing you a little song. I'll see if you...
Oh, great.
You just imagine halfway
through... I'm going to turn the camera
Ian.
off before I go to sleep, if you don't mind.
No, it's okay. I can just see me tapping. Ian, you're falling, you're drifting, he's drifting, he's gone.
Oh,
he's gone. Thank you for coming on. I mean, you're well known. You're very, very well known in the industry. And in fact, and in some cases, this is where I try not to be sycophantic, is that your name being involved in a project in some ways is enough of a selling point for a game. I mean, one of the most recent ones was like, say, for instance, like Escape Plan, where, your name was, interestingly enough, as much promoted on the Kickstarter as the involvement, as well as obviously the actual game designer itself.
Right.
Which was kind of like an interesting kind of start. You're actually one of these. You're quite famous in many ways. So I mean, like all kind of famous artists, does that mean that you're obviously penniless and are actually going to be worth a fortune when you're dead? No, that's a morbid question to start off.
That's a morbid question, Jesus.
No, but I mean, as I say, you're quite well known in the industry for kind of like, for the art. I mean, are you must be at a point where you're kind of like, you're quite pleased with where you are, or are you just kind of saying, well, I'm just looking for the next project. I need to see where the next bit of money's kind of coming in.
No, I'm pretty happy with where I am. My schedule is pretty full, which is always good. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak to how many other it's a very strange thing because I live in Perth in Australia, which is out in the middle of nowhere, and there's nobody around. I mean, there's actually quite a few gamers here. But in general, I don't have that much contact with the outside world besides when I go to Essen every year, and besides things like this every once in a while. So I don't really have a sense of that. Besides Twitter, I guess. But I always find that that's a bit misleading because, the people who like and respond to my tweets and stuff are the people who follow me anyway. So it's a little bit, it's an echo chamber, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It can sometimes be a bit of a pat on the back. Yes. And then you can think you're kind of like, and it's a strange. But then outside the sphere, I mean, in terms of, let's dial it back a bit. In terms of obviously where you are now, compared to where you were at the beginning. I mean, did you just go through the normal process? Did you go to kind of art school? Did you train professionally? I mean, have you been drawing since kind of you got hold of a crayon? I mean, where did you kind of start with your artist type though?
Pretty much. Drawing is just the thing that I've always done. So the illustration side of it is just something that I've always done myself. Graphic design or visual communication is what I studied in college. And then I've always worked as a graphic designer, and when I could fold in illustration, I tried to do it because I enjoyed that as well. So, and that's been on and off, throughout some jobs I wouldn't really get to use it at all, some jobs I got to use it a lot. So yeah, it's always been something visual. I don't really have anything else that I can do. I don't have a fallback plan.
Did you find but I mean, there's obviously a certain amount of creativity. You can't just give somebody like a box of crayons or a box of pencils, give them 15 hours and then they become really kind of good at art. I mean, you have like a kind of a natural talent. And did you find that you were, I mean, when you were starting to go down the kind of the professional route, did you find yourself kind of naturally going towards a certain style, or have you had to adopt kind of different styles in order to get yourself the work?
I have always worked in different styles, but it hasn't really been in an attempt to get work. It's kind of just the way I've always done things. If I tried to adopt a particular style at any stage, it was mainly probably because I was just trying to ape something that I really liked. So comic book artists and things like that. So I developed, I guess, I picked up all these different influences of things that I liked. And I always, if I really like something, I have this tendency to try and become part of it, right? Which board games is a testament to that.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
So, a similar thing with comic books, where I'll really like and enjoy comic books, and then I'll kind of think, well, I never actually became part of that, but then I'll think, I should try and create something in this sphere. Because I kind of jumped around in styles an awful lot, and because I never worked as a full-time illustrator, purely as an illustrator, it was always in tandem with design work. And obviously that design work is always for different clients and different industries and things like that. I found it was really useful to be able to jump backwards and forwards and develop new styles for different jobs and things. And that's actually become a pretty useful skill in board games as well.
I mean, where did you get what came kind of first? Was it because I know of some people that have kind of ended up getting more involved in the board game hobby because they were involved in the art, the art side themselves, Yep. I mean, were you kind of like a bit of an avid, I've seen the beautiful collection of games behind you, but were you, yeah, I'm taking down the details. But have you been playing games for quite a while before you stepped over and said, well, actually, I want to start kind of getting involved in the design side of things as well as in terms of the art design, graphic design side of things?
Yeah, a little bit. I was playing. I mean, I've when I was a kid, I played role playing games and stuff like that.
Mm.
And then I took a long break where I just played video games really through sort of probably my teens and into my 20s, and maybe a little later even.
You still playing video games, Ian?
Sort of. Yeah, I did. I stopped. So
Yeah.
I've got two kids, and one of them is 8 now.
All right. Okay.
And I stopped coincidentally. Not. It's not causation. I stopped around about the time that she was born, which is also around about the time that I was playing a lot more board games. I've actually this Christmas I've recently just gotten very slightly back into video games, but not really. I haven't really fallen in the deep end. I've just dipped my toe a little bit. So yeah, no, I was a board gamer before. Certainly, yeah. I went hobbyist first, and then can I dip into this professionally later?
I mean, what was the first game that you did?
The very first game that I did was... Oh, I can't find it. It was called Mage Tower. Mage Tower.
Okay.
And I didn't do the whole thing, I just did a card template, basically.
And was that like the graphic design stuff
Yes.
at that time?
Yeah, the game used public domain artwork. It was a Kickstarter, back when Kickstarters were small and quaint.
Yes.
It was it's like a tower defense card game. It's in a little box.
All right. Okay.
So
okay.
I literally just did a Photoshop template, and that was that. The first full game that I did was Fool's Gold, which is designed by Joshua Balvin, and I think Passport Studios they did publish it. I don't know if it's still available, to be honest. But that's a Gold Rush type of thing. Yeah, so that was the first full one, and it was the first time that I kind of realized that it was a good fit for me, for sort of the mixture of illustration and graphic design skills. That maybe I could do more of it.
Is it a lifestyle thing as well? I mean, you mentioned obviously that you work from home and that you're kind of lonely, and we can chat whenever you want, and
Did I say that?
I'm fine with that. Obviously there is the time difference, but I'm sure any kind of friendship can work if you kind of break down the barriers. So we can see how it goes. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, is that with you're given the project, you're said, okay, here's the brief, go away, come back with what your thoughts are, what the designs are. I take it sometimes the clients were kind of like, no, it has to be X, Y, Z, and other times it was just a case of, you can kind of come back with like 4 or 5 ideas, and we can kind of work around that and see which one is our favourite.
Sort of. I tend not to submit multiple ideas. I don't really like doing that because I don't know. In my experience, it tends to be a little bit of a waste of time. And if you have, I'd much rather develop a strong idea and then put my weight behind that, as opposed to say, here's some things I feel ambivalent about, or and maybe it's just that I can't come up with 3 or 4 ideas that I feel good about. I've only got one in me, and then there's always the danger that if you present 3 and you really like one of them, that they'll pick the worst one, and that's no good for anybody.
Yeah.
So and
then you end up working on something
if you've presented it, you can't kind of go, I didn't mean it, I withdraw.
I'd like to take this back. Could we revoke that decision, please?
I didn't think you'd choose it.
Exactly. You just like, what happened to that one? I accidentally Control-A and deleted the whole thing. I'm sorry. We'll have to go with option B.
There's no way to get it back.
If you kind of don't mind.
I can't remember it, yes, I much prefer to go in sort of strong with this is what I think it should be. Mm-hmm. And that has usually worked out. Not always. Mm-hmm. But it has usually worked out, yeah.
Do you get see when you were starting out, and, you know, is it a case that you're ending up, are you pitching, is there quite a lot of competition when you're pitching for jobs? As in, you know, as in, are you finding that you're going up against kind of like 4 or 5 different people, or are people, did you ever get kind of told, right, do you want to do this stuff? If you do this stuff, give us some samples and we'll make sure you get lots of exposure? Or have you always been kind of firm, well, yeah, I know, people die from exposure, that's my favourite joke in the world, but have you always been quite strict if somebody says to you, right, okay, well, if you do this for us, then I'll make sure you get your name on the Kickstarter box, and it's like, hang on, mate. Yeah. You've got 57 backers kind of thing. You know, I'm really happy 57 people are really going to see my art kind of thing.
I don't really have any time for that. Because I've worked primarily as a graphic designer for quite a few years. Now I've lost count how many years, but quite a few. And as a freelancer and you know, in advertising agencies and in marketing and all sorts of things. I'm pretty used to people trying to do that. So it's certainly nothing new. It's been going on forever. But yeah, so it comes up every now and then, less so now because people know me. The people that contact me for work now, it's almost 100% board game related. And for whatever reason, I haven't been asked to do anything for free in quite a while.
I can't imagine. Imagine that.
Which is good.
You could set up, so you could put a tweet out on Twitter. Guess what? Never guess who contacted me about doing some free work, but you're kind of like, yeah. I don't know. I find. I've done creative stuff myself. Yeah, I've done creative stuff myself.
Yeah,
and it's like I remember doing I used to do a lot of murals for kids' rooms, and I remember going into I remember going into places and you know them saying, "Oh yeah, we want, you know, if you could do Minecraft here, and we want kind of like a big jungle scene and a cityscape and stuff like that." And then you went, right, okay, that's probably going to be upwards about £300-400, and they go, "But I can get a decal on eBay for like 30," and you're just like, "What are you?"
Yeah.
What you kind of expecting? Do you? I mean, do you think that's an issue in general for kind of like the creative kind of side of Kickstarter with the art and stuff like that? That it's kind of like the lowest price. You know, people are always kind of chasing the kind of the lowest price. I know, obviously, game production, you do that.
Yeah.
Do you think it kind of ultimately hurts the industry by trying to push the price down so low that people end up having, you know, they're kind of scraping by in order to do something which can take like 8 to 10 hours of their time?
Maybe. I don't. It's not. I mean, in the board game industry, it's not something that's limited to artists by any means. Board game industry is built on on the backs of volunteers. Across the board, and if anything. I don't know, artists, because they have a demonstrable skill, tend to get paid more regularly, I think, in my experience anyway, than some of the other people, such as developers or editors sometimes who tend to do it. I don't know why, because they like it, I guess. That's changing slowly, but not slower than it should.
Did you ever play with actual board game design yourself? I mean, is there like on the shelf there? Is there like the little Ian O'Toole collection of games that you've kind of put together?
No. I have done a little bit. I was involved in a design of a game based on Terminator, actually.
Okay.
A little while ago, with a company called Rule and Make here in Australia. That didn't work out for a variety of complicated reasons. But it's something I enjoy. It's enjoyable to do, but it is extremely time consuming. And it doesn't pay any money. So,
yeah, I suppose.
All the hours I spent doing things like that, I'm thinking, if I just spent these hours doing what I really do, I'd actually get paid for it. That'd be great.
It's just like the wife's asking why the lights are going off in the house, and you're kind of like, you should see this worker placement game I've done, though, honey. It's amazing. Yeah. Just so bring the candle over.
Yeah. So it's pretty fun. I mean, I have a kind of a analytical mind, I guess, to an extent. So I really enjoy doing. Sometimes I do a little bit of, I guess, what you could call development work on some of the games I work on. I always do a visual development, but sometimes I'll suggest. It depends how well I know the designer. Usually, sometimes I'll either suggest things or not even suggest solutions, just maybe point out things. And I like that. I like sort of thinking about how the game is put together and having those conversations with designers. But as regards to creating something from myself or by myself, it just takes too long. It just takes too long.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I don't think so. I mean, unless I get a flash of something that I can do. But I'm very practical with these things. Even if I had what I thought was a wonderful idea for a 4X game or something like that, I'd never pursue it. I'd just give it to somebody else. I'd say, I had this idea. You might think it's good. Maybe it's a rubbish idea. I don't know. Who knows? If I had an idea for
stick my name in the box.
Yeah. For like a love letter style 18 card game, maybe I'd give it a go. Yeah. I don't know. Because at least then, I'm not saying Love Letter was an overnight design or anything, but at least then it wouldn't take me long to figure out if it was rubbish or not,
You could be saying, I could have been designing a game instead of doing this podcast, but...
Yeah. It's also really hard. It's really, really hard, and you need to rely on other people. That's also what's difficult about it. You need to rely on other people who are not professionals and who in general, you do not pay. You can't, because you can't afford to. If you design a game, I don't know how people do it really. I have an insight into how Vital does it, but if you design longer, heavier games, you got to ask people to commit to playtesting things that don't work at times and, are not fun to play and all that sort of stuff. And I do a bit of that because I test the artwork that I do. I'll do prototypes and I'll get friends together, and sometimes they're excited about it because of the game, but sometimes it's a bit of a chore. I try not to take advantage of it too much, but every now and then I'm like, I'm real sorry, guys. If we could just play like 2 rounds and then I'll know if it works.
Do you end up kind of get your phoning folk up and they're going, you coming round then?
Yeah,
depends what we're talking about, are we? It's not anything that's involving cubes and meeples and that kind of delightfully designed but ultimately very dry and dull game. No, it's not that. Are you sure? Because we're doing FaceTime just now and I can see it on the table behind you. No, it's definitely not that. I'm just about to burn that one.
Yeah.
But with the graphic design, you mentioned, have you kind of gone back and said, actually, when I've been laying this out from a space point of view, from the kind of the layout point of view, it actually makes more sense to have these things up here just
Oh,
from
yeah, all the
me
time.
being a visual kind of guy and saying the kind of the natural flow of the game, that I know you want it up there from a theme point of view, but from a practical point of view, me kind of laying it out and making sure that everything kind of fits together, it actually makes more sense to put it kind of X, Y, Z, yeah.
Yeah, all the time. That wouldn't be that's kind of the norm, really. That's a sort of early visual development stage. So I'll usually play their prototype, and then I'll scribble all over it with Sharpies, put big X's through things and question marks. Why?
Do you have a special red marker then as well?
No, I don't. No.
That's not a no.
No, it's not a no. But a big stamp, rejected stamp.
Exactly.
It's a really important. It's actually a really fun part of what I do as well, because it's a puzzle solving aspect to it that I really like, and it ties into the sort of ergonomic way that a game works, but also often it's to do with theme as well. To be honest, it's looking at it and going, I think I can sell this more if I shift this around, or this thing is, maybe it's a track and maybe there's a more thematic way to do that, or maybe it's not a track and it should be a track because it's really fiddly, stuff like that. Is always really interesting to me, and it's early on when you're asking more sweeping questions, I guess, about the project, and you don't have to deal with the practicalities of your decisions until later. It's a fun. So that's when I was talking earlier about the sort of visual development style. That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's playing it and saying, we could move this over here. That could be twice as big, and these should be counters instead of cards, or whatever. We can tuck these under here, and then you don't have to worry about seeing them anymore. All that sort of stuff. Just how physically the game moves around. It's almost a product design. Oh, sort of. Some of it's almost a product design. Do you have to be mindful then of potential costing implications then for the changes that you could be making as well? Because obviously you mentioned kind of like, well, this could be counters instead of cards, or this could be this instead of that. And then obviously, if I'm changing counters to cards is potentially saving somebody money, whereas the other way around, you could be looking at kind of like, well, it's a time scale thing, because obviously it can take slightly longer to actually get wooden components kind of put together than it can just kind of running over definitely.
the print kind of thing.
It's not just the case where I just go off and make my own decisions.
Have you got a red pen, Ian? You have, haven't you?
I don't have. No, I can't see I cannot see a red pen. I have a big black Sharpie.
That's because it's in your jacket. Don't lie. Come on.
I don't own
You're with
jacket.
friends here.
I've lost my train of thought now.
I know that's because it's my fault, because I keep trying to make out you're some kind of like angry kind of primary school teacher just going right in at the bottom, see me after class.
Let's try harder, yeah.
No, costings for games.
Costs,
if you making
yes.
implementations and changes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so what'll happen is I'll play the prototype and I'll make suggestions, and sometimes I'll just lay out a boxes and circles version of what I think it should be. No real design or artwork or anything. Just sort of, this goes here, that goes there. This should be a thing. That shouldn't be a thing. And I'll send that to the publisher or to the designer and say, this is broadly what I think will work, because also there may be something that I don't realize because I'm only playing the game once. It could be that I'm playing it with 2 players, and maybe with 4 players what I'm suggesting really doesn't work. Or maybe they're planning an expansion down the line, which they haven't told me about yet, and it needs to slot in where I've put a big pile of cards. I don't know.
Exactly.
So that there may be things that I haven't realized, and I mean it's also possible that I just got something wrong as well. Like we played something wrong, which does happen every now and then, because rules are often pretty rough when I get them. So it's always going back to the publisher and saying, this is what I'm thinking. Does this work? And it's most of a lot of the time the changes that I'll make at that point they're to do with the flow of the game and how to try and get people to understand it. But they're also to do with, are there any simple ways that we can cut down on setup time, or just reduce components often? Do we need all these chits? Is there just a more efficient way to do it? And just stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you have to take into account kind of like accessibility? Because I know that a lot of times, people are talking about, and I know you say dropped into the video game scene again, but it seems to be certain games, like let's say the Destiny games, have actively kind of taken into account kind of various kind of colour blindness and allowed you to kind of insert filters. On the board game thing, have you also got to take into account sometimes, the accessibility of the colour schemes that you're selecting, the symbols for, and things like that, as you go through the design process?
Yeah, certainly colour blindness is a big concern. That's something that we test all our colours with, simulators and stuff like that. That's the main one when it comes to accessibility. Just either hints for colour blindness or just making sure that the colours are properly colourblind friendly. Sometimes that's not always possible because there are 20 colours in the game. Sometimes.
Yes.
And there's only so much you can do. In which case you got to try and find, other indicators, or at least try and group the colors. So player colors aren't going to get confused, and resource colors aren't going to get confused because they're actually a different piece. So if I were a colorblind player, I could at least remember that if I see a grey meeple and a grey cube, they don't belong to the same people because they can never belong to the same people in this game. Right, something like that. Yeah. All that just depends on understanding the game and how it works and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, certainly colorblindness is it's actually one of the first things that we address. Myself and the publishers and designers address when we start to nail down the visual look of a game. So I usually nail down the player colors and resource colors before I do anything else. After I've done the visual development stage, that's when I'll do it. Because then,
how long? How long does a process like that take? Then, is it a couple of weeks? Is it a couple of months? Does it depend on the project? Because it sounds like you're doing a hell of a lot.
It depends.
I was thinking you were opening up
It depends on the project. So when you say that, does that process like up until that stage, or?
Yeah.
It depends on the project. The prototyping doesn't usually take that long, and often I don't really need to have a full game. It depends on the complexity of the game, and it depends on how it works. So I will create or be sent a prototype, and then I'll put it on the table and go through the rules and move things around. And sometimes that's enough for me. Sometimes it's enough for me to just solo it for like 3 rounds and pretend I'm 3 different people, and that's fine. Just so I can see how everything works, right? And it's not even playing the game. It's just saying, okay, player 1's going to do action 1 to see how it works. Player 2 is going to do action 2 to see how it works. Sometimes I'll want to actually play it. Generally, the more complex the game is, the more I'll need to actually play it. Because there's bound to be things that I just don't understand. Or will become apparent, during a full game. And if it's a super simple game, usually I just need to print it out and fiddle with it a little bit, and I've got a pretty clear idea of what's what. So that can take anywhere between a few hours to, I guess, when you're talking about something like On Mars or Escape Plan, first of all, it takes a little while to make those prototypes because it's a lot of pieces.
I was thinking.
It's a lot of cutting. I've gone through a lot of blades. So the actual prototyping itself can easily take 2 hours. That's just to build the thing. And then to play it takes 3 hours. So I mean, talking about choosing colors and stuff like that, usually doesn't take that long, because again, your options become pretty limited pretty quick. Although also as the rest of the design evolves, sometimes you realize, oh, maybe that's not the best color to use for that. A good example is on Mars. Originally had an orange color, and now it's not going to have an orange color because Mars is kind of orange. So similarly to how we have no blue player in Lisboa, because Lisboa, at least in the game, is kind of blue. We've changed orange for something else. So, and that's an obvious thing when I think back, but there's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, but at the time, I mean, a lot of times when people are prototyping stuff, they'll sometimes have like a toolbox of stuff that they'll use. So they'll just grab a group of meeples, or they'll grab a group of cubes, and at the time, that is the orange player. And the reason it's the orange player is because it's what my hand reached for at the time. Yeah,
Terra Mystica is that toolbox for me usually. This is just so full of pieces. Terra Mystica, and I have a big storage box full of different color cubes. But if I need anything specific, I usually go to Terra Mystica. Lots of colors, lots of different shapes. Poor game never gets played. It's very useful. I'll never sell it, I tell you what.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, is it a good game to play? It's like, I have no idea, actually, to be perfectly honest, but the cubes in it are delicious.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Lisboa. We have to talk about Lisboa, because, Lisboa and the colour scheme, and it's glorious to look at. But when you were going through the process of actually kind of putting everything together, at any point did you ever think, oh, I wish I hadn't made it so complicated? Or, I mean, because it...
Yeah, sure.
Because the intricacies on this artwork are phenomenal.
I knew what I was getting myself into, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. I probably did. Time fades all these traumas. I mean, I don't know. When we set out and we said, right, this is the style that we're going to go for. When you look at the style, it's never not intricate. So I guess that was just the sort of, right, all right, here we go. Deep breath, and then off we go. It did mean that a lot of it was quite methodical work. Which at times is actually very enjoyable. When you've come to, at least for me, when I've come to the end of the thinking part of it, the puzzle part of it, and Lisboa was quite a puzzle to work out. That's the game that I think we've done the most visual development, that physically changed the most from Vital's prototype to the final thing. To the extent that it actually informed the rules of the game and how the game is structured and things. A little bit. Once all of that is done, sometimes it's nice to just say, all right, I got to draw 600 leaves now. I don't need to think about it.
Is that kind of thing you can just contemplate your life?
I can just put on an audiobook or some music or something, and I can just destroy my back, leaning over my art table.
Is that kind of like where you just put there, and Gandalf approached the Hobbiton, and you're like, okay, number 1, number 2. Are you ever tempted to kind of like include little Easter eggs? Kind of like, is there, as part of the artwork? Because there's like, I'm trying to think of his name, and it's going to actually just absolutely, what's his name? He's a children's author. I think his second name's Cartwright. He illustrates, Eric Cartwright maybe. He illustrates kids' books, and at every point in every book that he's done, he's got a little yellow duck somewhere.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if there's like the Ian O'Toole...
a yellow duck in Lisboa.
Hedgehog.
He would stand out,
something
right?
like that.
If he was yellow.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. You know, a fish. A gull. Can you find it? Can you find the elephant kind of thing?
No, not really, to be honest. I've never. I don't think. I'm trying to think. Have I ever? Certainly not as a habit. I don't do it. It's not a thing that I always try and work in. Just because I never really thought about it before now, to be honest.
I'm just gonna think now. There's gonna be like you're gonna like contact me in like 5 years' time or something when we're doing another chat, and you say, "Now, if you look at every other game that I've done, now,
you'll find 20 clues that will lead you to."
You'll find clues. You'll find just like there's a red pen now drawn in every single copy of every single game that I kind of have.
Part of it, I think, is I'm not a huge fan personally of in jokes or things like that. I'm not. I don't know. It doesn't really work for me usually. Like I don't like promos with board game celebrities on them and stuff like that. It doesn't work for me. That I don't have I'm not like on a crusade against them, but just for me personally, I that's not really my thing.
Yeah.
Or games that very obviously riff on titles of films or characters from films, but they've changed a few names and maybe it's a chicken or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just not
Buck
that.
Rogers.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I hate that guy. I'm just personally
his robot's cool though.
Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of that sort of stuff. And I guess Easter eggs, it's not really the same thing, but it kind of seems a little just for I don't know, self-indulgent or something. I don't know. And to be honest, often I'm so busy that I'd never remember to do it.
I suppose. I mean, we have done the same joke for like 250 episodes. So I mean, I can't stand there and go, I would never ever do anything that was an in-joke or self-indulgent or anything like that. The entire structure of my podcast, and certainly parts that you are going to be involved in later on, are completely just repeated ad nauseum, basically, kind of thing.
Well, if you repeat something long enough, it gets funny again, right?
Is that kind of, is it that Richard, is it Lee Herring, or is that thing kind of thing where he kind of repeated it wasn't, maybe it was the other one. I don't know, I'm an old confused man, but if you repeat, yeah, you're right. As I'm eventually hoping that at some point, if I keep repeating the podcast, and somebody will eventually find it funny again. It's something I can dream for. Oh my goodness. Are you gravitating towards a particular kind of style? As you become, I mean, let's face it, I mean, you mentioned now that your kind of board game stuff is pretty much kind of like your full-time kind of bread and butter. Are people coming to you kind of like expecting kind of like you to do the kind of, can you Ian O'Toole this please kind of thing? Are you kind of getting that? Are they looking at kind of like Escape Plan? Are they looking at Lisboa and say, we'd love you to work on this? And he's like, have you got a brief? And it's like, no, if you just do something that you did in Hand of Fate 2, please. Or, or if you just do something that you did in Lisboa. Do you kind of get kind of people looking kind of, instead of people saying a brief and do this, they're actually looking for more of your input as your kind of your influence as an artist, kind of grows.
Yeah, I guess so. I haven't had anyone ask, at least that I can call to mind, ask to do the same thing again. I don't think I've had someone come to me and say, we really like Escape Plan, we want that style on our game.
Yeah.
That hasn't really happened, which is, I guess, a little bit surprising. Yeah. Usually, I think people approach me because they know what my approach is, or maybe not. Maybe they just have seen what I've done. But they definitely seem to have at least an understanding that it won't look particularly like any of the other games. Like, the illustrations won't be the same style. Which is a little bit of a tricky thing, because I can't tell them what it'll look like sometimes until it's done, because I don't know what they're going to look like until they're done. Sometimes, often actually. So I can't.
So
really
what
say.
you do? I'm just making it up as I go along.
Yeah,
I'm just making it up as I go along.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, that's fine for me. Yes, I think most people seem happy for me to direct myself a little bit. I mean, sometimes there's an actual art director involved, but usually there's a level of trust at this stage. For me to go off and come back with something and make recommendations and things like that.
Is there any games that you would have loved to have got your hands on that you've seen kind of other people work on? Obviously, with the greatest of respect, you're not saying that they're rubbish, but obviously we'll take you answering this question to say that whoever you want to replace did do a bad job. Mm-hmm. But is there any games that you wish you kind of had got your hands on in terms of, designing it? Anything that you would kind of like, I'd love to have had a shot at this, or even games that you see just now, which you would say, I'd love to kind of put my own particular spin or my own particular kind of twist on.
Yeah, there's a few. I don't know how much I should say about some.
Oh. You can't say that. You can't. Oh yeah, there's a few. Here's a bag of monies that I'm not going to give you.
Right. I mean, I've said before that I would like to work on Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah.
And again, I've also said that it's not necessarily because I think what they've done is unsuccessful. I just think there's a more interesting way to lay it out and portray it. But that's not going to happen. I mean, there actually aren't.
It's a difficult one.
Actually, aren't that many really. I mean, there are games that I play and I feel ambivalent about how they look. Sure, but that doesn't make me go, "I wish I had done this." It kind of makes me go, "I wish this game looked a bit more interesting," or it's not necessarily I want to fix everything. Nor am I arrogant enough to think that I could fix everything. I think in some ways knowing what the process is often like, it often just to some degree makes me a bit more understanding sometimes.
Yeah,
where I can kind of go, I understand what it's wrong. Like they did it wrong, but I understand why it ended up like that, and I kind of sometimes, and I kind of sympathize. I kind of get it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah, so you can see it's just like going to go like, I'm going to say something. No, I can't say anything. I'm not going to say anything. So can we please move on to a different question, please? Because
Stefan Feld is a designer that I like most of his games. And he's also, his games are the sort of thing that I think fit pretty well what I do. It's lots of tracks and things, it's quite abstract and all that sort of stuff. So I would like to work on a Stefan Feld game. I haven't had the opportunity to yet. And there's been a few that have come out where I've gone, I think I could have done something a bit better than that, without saying anything specific.
Who would you like to work with then? I mean, as I say, when you've got people kind of like actively naming you as favourite artist and stuff like that, and you have got the name behind you, and people are, as I say, it's a strange situation where you're kind of like, you've got your Beth Sabels, you've got Kwanchai Moria, obviously you've got yourself, it's, people know who you are because of the art that you produce and the designs that you do and everything like that as well. And you're right up there with, people will know you as well as they'll know the designers of the game. So, I mean, in that case, is there kind of like designers that you, as an individual, you would love to, kind of what you make Stefan Feld, but is there anyone else you would say, I'd love to just work on a project with this person and see what we could do with kind of my creativeness and their kind of mechanics, and
sure,
make a little kind of board game baby together or something.
Well, when you put it that way.
It's Jamie Stegmaier, isn't
it? I've had conversations with Jamie, so yeah, sure, I'd like to work with Jamie. I would like to work with Carl Chuddock.
All right, okay.
Although I don't know how, he's not very particularly prolific these days. I don't. Other than that, I mean, Uwe Rosenberg would be interesting, certainly. But I don't know. I don't know if that would be a good fit. I don't know. We could probably make it work. I don't know. It would be a bit of a weird one, and sometimes that's attractive to me. Where I'll go, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's find out. I quite like doing that, and that's also sometimes when I work on styles and things. Often it's like I don't know if people are going to like this. Let's find out. We'll put it in front of them and see. So I say Carl Chuddock because I really like his games. I say Stefan Feld, I like his games, and they're nice little visual puzzles for me to work out, so that kind of fits.
Yeah.
And I guess a Rosenberg game would also be that, but Rosenberg games are weird to me because they're always made up of like 6 little boards, and all the boards are different shapes, and they fit across the table in some sort of weird L shape. It's always very bizarre, and every time I set one up, I'm like, how? There must be an easier way to do this. And maybe there isn't. I don't know.
But you can imagine you say, well, could you want to do it this way? And it's just saying, go, leave, do not come back.
Dismissed, yeah. So I think that would be interesting, just to try and work through that sort of exercise of figuring out that puzzle. Does this need to be a big long thing that hangs off the table, and all that sort of stuff.
Do you think people always talk about kind of like the Kickstarter bubble bursting, and all of a sudden the entire board game industry is going to disappear in a puff of smoke? Do you think that's like, I mean, as somebody who is probably a little bit more knowledgeable on the inside from probably the amount of traffic in terms of inquiries and stuff that's going on, in terms of just Kickstarter itself, is art becoming really, really popular? No, sorry, not popular. Really, really necessary for Kickstarter, for even games to kind of get funded? Are people almost having to spend like a fortune in order to kind of put a product out there to even get it kind of off the ground?
Yeah, definitely. It needs to be almost finished. There's a weird disconnect sometimes when people assume what they're looking at is what the final thing is going to look at, and you've seen that a little bit in the High Rise campaign recently.
Yes,
which I think surprised a lot of people I think it's funded just this morning, which is great, but it struggled to fund at the start, and I think there's different factors in that. We don't need to get into that, but part of it I think was because they were showing off prototype graphics. and certainly in the second campaign, because the first one was cancelled. In the second campaign, they've shown more finished graphics. Obviously, made a conscious effort to show more finished graphics, and I think people will just assume that what they're looking at is what it's going to look like at this stage. So if you show a prototype graphic, even if you put a big sticker on it that says prototype graphic, doesn't matter. People will just go, "Oh, no. That looks a bit bland. I don't want to do that."
No. No.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely become a requirement at this stage for a successful Kickstarter. I think, for at least in my experience and from everything else I've seen. I mean, it's pretty rare these days that you see something that goes up that's got, a key art sample. And if we raise the funds, the rest of the game will look like this. I mean, can't remember the last time I've seen that. Whereas that's what it used to be, when Kickstarter first appeared.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
yeah. I mean, you probably still see it a little bit on smaller scale, but I don't know how well they do, and I don't know how many of them there are anymore. It's pretty risky, I think.
Away from the cardboard, and even away from the art type of stuff, do you, because you're self-employed, do you kind of force yourself to go and do other things that aren't board gamey and art related, in order to kind of get a break, to keep the creative influences kind of going? I guess I'm asking, do you have any hobbies?
I really should do, shouldn't I? What do I... Oh, God. See, we're actually talking right now in the middle of my deadline season. Because between January and probably the end of April, although it creeps a little bit later every year, becomes the deadlines for getting stuff for Gen Con, for Essen, all this type of thing.
Yeah.
Especially if they're going to be on Kickstarter first, it's got to be even earlier. So I have zero time at the moment. Very, very, very much so, as regards hobbies and things like that. So most of my hobby, I guess it's still hobby time now, is spent playing games. Other than that, as I said, I bought a PlayStation at Christmas, but I haven't really used it all that much.
Wow.
I play with my kids. I read books to my kids a lot. I like doing that. I draw with them a bit, as much as I can. But apart from that, I mean, I read and I watch stuff on TV, not just random stuff. I have a dog, but not really. I don't really have I'm not like a wood turner or something like that. Unfortunately, exactly. I would love to try wood turning. I've always wanted to try wood turning, but I have not. I have not done it.
Just look at this lovely banister I've made.
Yeah,
you've not got any stairs, Ian.
No
it
stairs.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No stairs, but look at this lovely banister.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
So I mean, I'm a big horror film fan. I watch a lot of horror films.
Yeah.
I read comic. I've read a lot of comics. I've kind of fell off it a little bit. I'm getting back into it a little bit now because my daughter is starting to show an interest in comics. So I'm like,
right, okay.
That's reignited my my interest as well. Yeah, that's I have no time.
But apart from it, it's 60-hour days and deadlines, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. No, it's cool. No, it's cool. Look, I really before we draw it to a close, obviously, I really appreciate you giving us the kind of the time today to have a chat. I know that you're very, very busy, and you're also far more important than us. I'm even delighted. I'm delighted you even said you'd like to speak to us, which is I was like that. I also, as I said, I did kind of completely have a moment of abject fear when I heard you on one of the biggest podcasts in the board gaming space earlier on today and then waxing lyrical about you. So the fact that you've actually come on the show, I'm kind of like, no, thanks.
Oh, that's all right.
I've kind of got a bit of validation in our life. No, I mean, you've obviously got 1,000,001 things kind of going on, which is all really, really great and fantastic, and we wish you the best of that. But if people want to keep an eye on you on the internet webs, where do we find you on the internet webs?
On Twitter, for the moment, is probably the best way to find me. I'm at Ian O'Toole Tweets there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not very active anywhere else. I don't have time.
Okay. Website or anything?
Oh, yeah, I have a website. Oh, Jesus. But it's very out of date. It's ianotoole.com. It's very out of date. I need an assistant. I really need an assistant.
Just need a graphic designer or something.
Yeah.
Dear.
Yeah. It's there, but it is there. Yeah.
It is there.
Mm-hmm.
It is a thing that exists, but
it's about a year old.
Ian said,
it's there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Get on the Twitter.
Just don't visit the news section.
Oh, okay. Let's go into the news section.
No, don't do that.
What
have I been up to in 2015?
Exactly. Happy New Year to everybody in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it does actually say that.
So it's
I'm only joking. It was
something about the Millennium Bug, I think. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh my goodness, I can't. There's like kind of things. Let's just not go there.
No.
If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, you can go to the internet webs and you can search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us on Twitter, and you'll find us on Facebook, and you'll find us on our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. You'll find us on our blog, which is we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. You'll find us on all those things like Instagram, because we do pictures, and
I'm on
YouTube,
Instagram.
because we do. Oh, right, there you go. And we do. And we do bad videos. Remember, Ian's on Instagram as well. And as we go through other places, there's a potential that Ian might be on them too. So
no,
just, is that it?
That's it, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You finished?
Mm.
Okay. And you can find us on various different podcast catchers, such as Stitcher and Speaker and Acast and Spotify and Podknife, and most places with the word cast, and most of the places with the word pod in them, If you like what you've listened to tonight, there's a couple of things you can do to help us. First thing is tell somebody. Just go, oh, I listened to this podcast last night, it was alright. Or, and then tell them, and that'd be lovely. The other thing you can do is you can go to Apple Podcasts and you can drop us a subscription. Or you can drop us a rating or a review. If you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars, because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star, because it makes us cry. And I'm getting older, and I'm a really ugly crier. In fact, if I said to Ian, draw us a picture of me looking good while I'm crying, he'd be like, don't be so stupid, I can't do that.
Are you going to pay me?
Exactly. That's the first thing you'd say. How much? Give us a 5, because it's in the middle, and it's average, and we're decidedly average. But the person who's not been average tonight is rather wonderful. They're rather fantastic. They're rather, can you just let me go back to bed, please, for goodness sake, Mr. Ian O'Toole. It's like the opposite sides, because I'm just about to go to bed and he's just about to go to bed.
Yeah.
Obviously on opposite sides of the world, But there's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Ian?
No. No.
Good.
No.
That was a bit doubtful, but we'll let you go.
Is it a are you now or have you ever been situation?
I don't really, I'm just accepting first answers here,
okay,
so that's fine. If I find out later on you were some kind of wizard, then
Okay.
It's okay. I've still got to edit this thing, remember, that's all I'm going to say. The second thing is to say goodbye. So say goodbye from rather wonderful, the rather fantastic, the rather very, very talented Mr. Ian O'Toole. Say goodbye, Ian.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll sixes, and he's got a Twitter, he's got a website, but don't look at the news section. He might have an Instagram. Who knows? Yeah. But until the next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.